Mr. Stone, so here's your model. Really like it. I think it's probably the better model I've seen in class so far, and looks like it's fairly well complete. Here's some suggestions as I was looking through this before of what I would do to try to fix this, to try to make it function a little bit better. So, let's go ahead and get started. So you have your tray down here, and one thing I noticed with your assembly is that even though the tray is fixed, it's not necessarily aligned with the origin. So if you open this up and look at the right plane over here and look at the right plane in the feature manager design tree of the assembly, these things really aren't quite fixed, and this is kind of a common problem until you get used to how to put assemblies together. So let's go ahead and fix this. What we really want to do is we want to put that tray right in at the origin. So let's do this. What you want to do is you want to float it, and whenever you open up a component and you want to put that into the onto the origin as you're fixing it, you have to follow this procedure. Now you can fix something like out in space. It doesn't necessarily have to be at the origin, but the advantage of putting it on the origin is that it lines up all the planes, the front to the front, the right to the right, the top to the top, and you really want to do that in order to get your model to come together, especially when you're dealing with something like this. You want to be able to come together and use those planes as references for your mates. So let's go ahead and browse for that tray, and just to see, I mean, you have it, I think you just arbitrarily dropped it out here, but there's a couple things you could do. You can go to the green check mark. You can see that it's going to be off to the side down there. Or you can go up here to view, turn on your origins, and just snap it to the assembly origin down here. Well, let's do this. Let's just go to the green check mark, and that's where it would be. So, how do you fix what's already there? I'm going to go ahead and delete that. How do you fix what's already there? Let's turn off our origin so it doesn't kind of clutter up the screen. Let's go ahead and click on the tray up here. Right click on it, you notice it's got the F up here, which means it's fixed. We're going to go ahead and float it. And of course, if we move that around, everything else that's connected to it moves around with it too. So, this is what we're going to do. This is kind of a special kind of mate. We're going to click on the origin of the tray and the origin of the assembly, and we're going to mate those together. Now, I think I demonstrated this in class on Thursday. You want to make sure that the align axes box here is checked. And if you do that, now it becomes mated to the origin. Well, let's go ahead and fix that. It's always nice knowing that the first object, the first part that you put into an assembly is going to be fixed. So we can right click on that. Let's go ahead and fix that. So now it's fixed. So those mates that we just put in there, the coincident to the origin now becomes part of the background. And we can delete that too if we wanted to do that. It still becomes fixed, but it's fixed exactly where we want it to be. Now, to show you some of the advantages of doing that, if we were to take this part, which I believe if we go ahead and open up that part, you built that with symmetry in mind. So let's go ahead and do our rollback bar and see how the base sketch and extrude are. It's mid-plane extrude right out of the middle, so what we can do is we can take that right plane and mate that to the right plane of the assembly, and everything should be lined up just right. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and close this out now. I'm not going to save this, but yes, I want to keep it in memory, any changes that I made, because ultimately I want to go ahead and just, whatever changes I make in your model here, I want to go ahead and delete those so I don't overwrite the files that you sent me. So let's do this. So we're going to go into that part, which is called the base. You call it the base. We're going to line up the right plane with the base there, and the right plane of the assembly, and we're going to mate those together. You can see how that moves over. Now if you click in the base and try to move that, now it is fully defined. And that's probably what you want to do with all your parts. You can do that to the lid up here, to the punch press, as you call it. And even this part over here, you can make a relationship with that right plane in the assembly, and everything will come together and resolve itself relatively quickly if you do that. So, a couple other things. I know you worked in the spring a little bit. I show you how to do that, but let's do this. Let's go ahead and delete some of the elements that we don't really need here, and let's concentrate on this thing over here. Once we get this thing done, or maybe the one in the middle done correctly, then we can go ahead and copy that or mirror that over into the other locations, and take a look at how that resolves itself. So perhaps maybe the better thing to do right now is not to move that around. But let's go ahead and look at your spring. And you probably want to do this with the spring that I showed you how to do. What we want to do is we want to go to our helix down here, go to the base of the helix, and we want to show that sketch. And what that does is that gives us a sketch element, or some sort of element that we use to actually fix that to the base of the punch. If that's how you named it. Let's go ahead and rebuild that and close it out. We don't want to save it. At least I don't want to do it, but I do want to keep that element in there. So now we could take that sketch and that face and actually make those together. Something else we could probably do with the spring too. And let's go ahead and open that up again. Let's go ahead and take that the base sketch. I hope we can do this. Let's go ahead and put something in here that some sketch geometry in here that we could use. So let's go ahead and make this coincident with each other, and it doesn't matter if we make that horizontal or vertical, but we're going to go ahead and trim that out, and that should be in pretty good shape. And the reason this happens, I think it's when your computer gets kind of low in memory, as mine might be, because I have a couple different models open, it begins to show some of the coding that goes with with the dimension that we put in there, that you put in there. So not to be alarmed by it, but I think if we were to close it and open up this model again, it probably wouldn't show that. Okay, so now we have some sketch geometry in here that we could actually use when we go to the assembly. So yes, we want to see that, and let's take this edge and maybe that edge over here and make those parallel to each other through a mate. Now the coincident mate that it chooses by default, it's not going to work, but if we make it parallel, doesn't seem to like that either. As you maybe already have that defined. No, it doesn't look like it. But let's try that again. Let's make that edge and that edge. And this may be at a different angle, so let's do this. Let's take that, and perhaps your one of the other planes that you have in here, maybe the front plane. Let's go ahead and make those parallel to each other. Okay, that works out. So now your spring is defined and won't rotate in here, and you can compress it using that, how I showed you how to do that in class on Thursday. So that's in there in pretty good shape. You have your punch in here, I believe that's called your punch. Let's go ahead and work in that a little bit. Let's go ahead and open up that. And I'm not going to open up all your parts in here because I think they're in pretty good shape. Looks like you had some pretty good sketch geometry to begin your parts with. But let's go ahead and do this. Let's make some sort of a relationship, a tangent relationship between maybe a curved surface on the top of this and that element that's on top. That I think you called that the punch press. The element that actually gets compressed, that you actually move down in order to move these these cylinders down through the paper. Let's add some additional geometry to that. The revolve feature is in pretty good shape, I think. Let's go ahead and look at that sketch that's in there. So that's good. Looks like you put it on both sides. Typically what you would do with a situation like that is you would just you would sketch on one side rather than both sides. But SolidWorks, I think, probably resolved that pretty well for you. But let's pick one of the planes, maybe the right plane. Let's go ahead and sketch on that. And I'm going to go normal to that. And let's go ahead and draw our reference geometry. This is going to also be a revolve feature. Let's draw a center line going up, a 3-point arc from here down to that edge, and just kind of arbitrarily park it out there. But what I want to do is pick up the projected edge. I can do that. There's the projected edge. With the control key to press, I'm going to click on that arc and make those tangent to each other. And then we're going to take this point, the center of that arc, and that center line, we're going to make those coincident with each other. So it's going to be tangent out here, tangent down there. So I'm going to revolve this around. It's going to create a partial sphere out of it. Now let's go ahead and enclose our geometry. And that looks like it's in pretty good shape. So let's go ahead and go to our features. Revolve boss base. It's automatically going to assume that that center line we drew in there is going to be the axis of our revolution. If we just go to the green check mark, now we have the top onto that. Cut extrude. Doesn't look like it likes that very much. Let's go ahead and see what's going on with that. Let's go into the sketch. And what used to be the top up here is no longer there, so we can go ahead and delete that relationship and perhaps reselect that. This time, instead of choosing top, we're going to go ahead and choose that projected line that defines the difference between the cylinder and the sphere that's on top. Let's go ahead and make that coincident with each other. If we rebuild that, it's still got a negative sketch, or a negative sign out, which means our sketch isn't fully defined. So let's go ahead and see what's wrong with this thing. It could be that the plane we're drawing on is not fully defined, but I don't see anything else that's wrong with this. Let's right click and go to what's wrong. Oh, that's not there either. Oh, let's see something down here. Oh, you got yourself a pony line. It didn't really affect the model at all, but here's a little line that when you're clicking a little bit too fast, it kind of puts in these little pony lines. Sometimes they're hard to see. But if you look towards the corners down here, you can see like extra stuff down there. And that's kind of indication that you have that. And sometimes it comes out as blue. So let's go ahead and delete that because we don't need that. If you go to rebuild, now we're in pretty good shape. So let's go ahead and close out. We don't want to save that, but yes, we want to keep the model geometry in there, in memory. And now you have the tops of your punches in here, and that should go down with through the cylinders that you have down here, the cylindrical cuts. So let's do this. To help us model, let's go to a section view, and let's take a look at that right down the middle of that. And you have a couple different choices over here with your section views. We're going to choose the one on the right, and what that does is just gives you a different 90-degree orientation. Go to the green check mark. And what we want to do is we want to have a relationship between, a mate relation between that cylindrical face up here and this spherical face down here, and we're going to make those tangent to each other. So once we do that, if we move this down, and go to the green check mark, that's going to push that down. So I think that's probably the effect that you want. Now it's not quite going through the paper. You probably have to make this punch a little bit longer in order for it to actually penetrate down here where the paper is going to go in, which is going to be here. So you don't have any interference, but that's a small modeling issue, and that's up to you to resolve. So I think this model is in pretty good shape. You've done a really good job in this thing so far. It looks really realistic. I would make those changes that I put in there. And remember to have good, robust sketch geometry in here in order to, to manage your parts that you're making. Plus, when you get into the assembly environment, remember to fix the first part to your origin. Not just fix it in there arbitrarily, but make sure it gets fixed to the origin, and everything else should come into place. So if you have any additional questions, let me know. And just looking over here, I do see some interference over here between the parts. You might want to get that fixed too. And if you have any other issues like that, you probably want to get that fixed. So, good job. We'll see you in class.